Thank you, Helen. Ladies and gentlemen, the Atheist Society proposes the motion that this House opposes the biblical account of the resurrection. Furthermore, we oppose all accounts of resurrection. Ladies and gentlemen, we do so based on fact. There is no factual truth in the story of the resurrection as written in the Bible. Few, and I would actually suggest none, of the main events could have happened, nor did happen, and I intend to show that to you tonight. There are several key points to the resurrection story. In order, they're the trial, the execution, the burial, the post-mortem appearances, and the associated phenomena, and an eventual ascension. In fact, I think my opponents would agree that just about covers the resurrection as described in the Bible. That story is, of course, that of Romulus, the founder of Rome, Samson, Odysseus, Sunjata, Krishna, and even Jesus. What is interesting to note at this stage is that there is absolutely no non-Christian documentation or evidence that specifically mentions the death or the resurrection of Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the cornerstone of the Christian faith.
What about the Talmud?
There is in fact no evidence of any sort that Jesus died at all. There is no Roman record of it. There is no Jewish record at the time. The only information available to us is that of the Bible. And interestingly, most of the evidence was rejected by the Council of Nicaea and is now uncanonical. This itself is interesting. The uncanonical Gospels actually give more compelling and believable evidence than the Gospels that made it into the modern New Testament. And these four Gospels provide no agreement on the main and key points. There is similarity, of course. There's similarity in the tomb, in the finding of it empty, in a couple of the post-mortem appearances, and they all agree that Jesus ascended to heaven. Though the details of this vary from book to book. Basically, I'm going to stop talking about evidence now, because there isn't any. The opposition will claim in their rebuttal that they're going to use historical method to prove that what was said in the Bible can be taken as true. However, what they're going to fail to show to you, and I'm going to fail to tell you, is that historical only methods only works with unbiased and objective evidence. And the Bible isn't any of these. It is not an unbiased account. It is not an objective account. It gives no reasonable, feasible, or even testable account or evidence. And all of it conflicts with known facts. That absolutely rejects the idea you can use the historical method. Because people don't come back from the dead, people, ladies and gentlemen. They do not rise from the dead. There is not a single documented case of someone who has died and come back to life. So, ladies and gentlemen, either Jesus did not die or he did not rise from the dead. It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm asking you to make that choice tonight. He didn't die or he didn't rise from the dead. The resurrection, ladies and gentlemen, is from the realm of science fiction. It's a story of zombies and the undead.
Gentlemen, hang on.
The resurrection is a myth, a story, and a legend that extols the same hero stories found in countless faiths and cultures. At my last count, there are over 1,000 unique resurrection stories. We've mentioned some today, not forgetting things like King Arthur, Buddha, thousands more. And these, ladies and gentlemen, come from over 500 different religions, different cultures, and different faiths. And how many of those do you pay credence to? How many of those are feasible? And how many of those do you believe, ladies and gentlemen? This is Rationalist Week. I urge you to think about this rationally. This is not a case of faith or fact. It's a case of what is available and what has been argued today. Jesus did not die and rise from the dead. He just died, if he even lived at all.
There should be silence from the audience during the speeches. You'll get your chance to say something when we have the questions from the floor. If you don't keep quiet, then I'm going to get angry and it's not really fair on the people who are speaking. I'd like to invite Debbie to open the case of the opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin just in sort of response to what was said, that historical fact can't be used and that the evidence is unbiased, with a quote from a guy called Simon Greenleaf, who was Royal Professor of Law at Harvard University in America and was declared at the time by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of America to be the greatest authority on legal evidence who ever lived. And he basically spent many years researching on the resurrection, and he concluded, and I quote, that in any unbiased courtroom in the world, if the evidence of the resurrection of Christ were presented, it would be declared as an absolute historical fact. He also held that there is more evidence supporting the historical fact of the resurrection of Jesus Christ than for just about any other event in history. And so, what I am going to do, and he kind of preempted that, is there are three facts which generally critics of the New Testament largely agree on. And I'm going to state those three facts and then go through and say why I believe that why they are agreed on. The three facts are that there was, the tomb was empty, and that it was discovered by women the day after, on the Sunday after he died. The second one is that Jesus appeared on multiple occasions to individuals and groups after his death. And the third one is that the disciples suddenly and sincerely came to believe God had raised Jesus. So first of all, the empty tomb. The earliest account of that there was an empty tomb is in Mark, and his sources can be dated to 7 years after Jesus' crucifixion. So you can't, there is no way of saying that it was a legend, or that, it had become it wasn't exactly what happened, because it was 7 years afterwards, which is a lot closer to the date when it happened than a lot of other Roman and Greek history. For example, Alexander the Great, the first autobiographies about him were 400 years later, and historians agree that they're agreed on they're trustworthy, so 7 years later is pretty good as far as history goes. And also that there are multiple and independent sources stating about the empty tomb. And he says everything in the Bible isn't trustworthy, but they are independent, and they were at different times and they were early. So there is Mark, Luke, Paul, multiple people that say it. And also the fact that he was that they say that the empty tomb was discovered by women just shows that they wouldn't have made that up, because women were not considered trustworthy, and the men would have felt humiliated anyways by the fact that it was women. So why would they make that up? Why would they, if they were making up a lie, why would they say women had found it? And therefore, if the tomb was found empty, which I'm sure we'll have more arguments about later, there's a few options. Either enemies stole the body, and there's not many reasons why, and also because as it's such a central thing, they would have said afterwards, they would have pointed to where they'd stolen it and brought out the body and said, well, he didn't come up to life because here he is. Or friends stole the body, which there wouldn't be much point to, because many of them gave their lives for him, and if you wouldn't stake your life on a lie if they knew it was a lie. And thirdly, he was buried in a different grave, or they all forgot where it was, which is just pretty implausible, and they would have then pointed to the different grave when they wanted to show that he hadn't come back to life. Or he never died, which Bex is going to go into details about why we believe that he did die, or at least that it's not plausible that he came back in the way he did. Or he rose.